All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely intense, beautifully stark essay written by Shufang back in late 2023. It's called Look Up to the Stars While Standing in the Gutter. We're going to be exploring the absolute lowest points of human existence, truly hitting rock bottom. But more importantly, we're going to examine a radically transformative way to actually pull yourself out of it. Look, this isn't your typical fluffy self-help material. It's a raw, unflinching look at suffering and survival. So let's break this whole thing down. So Shuafeng kicks things off with a pretty blunt reality check. He says, in life's journey, there will be times when you find yourself living in the gutter. He really doesn't sugarcoat the human condition here. He's validating something that so many of us try to hide. That profound, suffocating darkness is just a universal part of the human experience. It's not really a matter of if we hit these depths, but when. And he confronts that reality head on. Now, what's really striking here is how physical he makes this psychological concept. He defines the gutter not just as feeling sad, but as an environment of utter, miserable degradation. Think absolute darkness, dampness, foul odors, and being completely surrounded by rodents, snakes, cockroaches, and mosquitoes. Metaphorically, the source describes living here as feeling neither alive nor dead. You're just trapped in this constant physical and mental torment. You can't live well, but you can't die either. You're just totally stuck in the suffering. To really pull us into that headspace, the text asks a series of pretty jarring questions to put us right in those shoes. First up, have you ever experienced constant harassment and threats? Imagine local thugs just totally upending your normal life. Picture your windows being smashed in, random people shouting aggressively at your door at midnight, throwing paint on your house, and constantly threatening you and the people you love. That right there is the first layer of the gutter, the absolute loss of your physical security and peace of mind. And it cascades, right? Have you experienced total, crushing financial ruin? The text describes the deep exhaustion of being unemployed, having absolutely zero savings in the bank, yet still needing to care for your family. You've got no land, no job prospects, and honestly, the most devastating part, you reach out for a lifeline, asking anyone for help, and you find absolutely no one willing to step up. It is profound, incredibly isolating poverty. Or what about having the rug pulled out from under you over and over? Have you been repeatedly driven from your own home? Just imagine the pure despair of having your safe haven destroyed time and time again. The author describes having to wander this massive world with literally nowhere to go, nowhere to settle down. You're just struggling to survive every single day in this permanent state of disappointment and hopelessness. This sets up one of the absolute most brutal ways to land in the gutter, that sudden, shocking fall from grace. Just imagine the contrast here. The before, your home is bustling with esteemed guests. You're spirited, full of ambition. Maybe you're even a respected leader. But then the after hits. Suddenly, you're basically a prisoner. Your home is ruined, everything you own is confiscated, and the absolute worst part? Those former close friends, the people you used to help out, they completely scatter. You're left entirely abandoned, without a single visitor coming to your rescue. The text also dives into these absolutely harrowing physical journeys people take just trying to escape that despair. And it is not an easy walk to freedom. We're talking about dodging police, dealing with extortion from the underworld, enduring literal life-threatening jungle adventures, and crossing turbulent seas, all while your money runs dry, your food vanishes, and a sudden illness knocks you off your feet. You're just looking for a free homeland, but you're met with extreme exploitation and deadly danger at literally every turn. But then there's the psychological gutter, the ultimate betrayal. The text asks, have you ever had the person you trusted the absolute most deceive you? They empty your pockets, sabotage your career, and spread all these untrue accusations about you. There's no one around to stand up for you, and the entire world just looks at you with suspicion. It is a complete and total collapse of trust. And finally, we have the inescapable trap. This is when you unknowingly fall into a toxic organization or some kind of scheme. At first, it's great. You taste all the sweetness, you really think you're on the path to a superior life. But once the conspiracy unravels, you realize you're locked in. There's no way out, and you are pushed right to the brink of considering desperate, irreversible measures. So here's the kicker. If any of these scenarios resonate, the author argues it proves you are currently living in the gutter. And he equates the gutter to standing dangerously on the cliff of death. This isn't just a rough patch or a tough week. This is standing right on the edge of the abyss, where one single misstep means plummeting into the void and bidding farewell to life itself. I want us to just pause for a second and think about a number. 1 million. The source states that globally, approximately 1 million people take their own lives every single year, with something like 10 to 20 million attempting it. That is a staggering reality. It represents the literal life or death stakes of this kind of despair. Those contemplating that step are, in the author's framework, living in the gutter at that exact moment. It's an incredibly heavy, sobering truth. But right here, this is where the essay pulls off this massive, profound pivot. Honestly, if you take exactly one thing away from this explainer, let it be this quote. If you're living in the gutter, here's some advice. Look up to the stars. It's this urgent, beautifully uplifting act of defiance against the dark. When you're completely surrounded by the dampness and the vermin, you actively have to shift your gaze upward. Why? Well, paradoxically, living in the gutter is actually your best opportunity for a profound transformation. Hitting rock bottom shouldn't be viewed as the end of your story. Instead, it's this incredibly rare, unparalleled chance to transcend the ordinary. Think about it. When everything is stripped away from you, you finally have a completely blank slate. So how do we actually do this? The author lays out a highly actionable survival framework. First, you look up at the stars. You actively shift your focus away from the despair. Second, you completely wipe out your past perspectives. And third, you refuse to compromise with the gutter. The logic here is pretty wild, but makes sense. Since you're already standing on the edge of death anyway, why not just completely wipe out everything that led you there and start entirely anew? This kind of psychological reset means entirely scrapping your old values, your old beliefs, your entire worldview. The text calls for adopting a set of 4 perspectives that are fundamentally different from whatever you believed before. Now, the essay doesn't outline exactly what these 4 specific perspectives are in this excerpt, but the structural takeaway is really clear. Partial change just isn't going to cut it. Survival requires a completely new lens to view your existence through. Now, there's a really strict warning here to make this actually work. Stop complaining and never collude. You absolutely cannot waste your precious limited energy complaining about everything in the gutter, and above all else, you must not compromise or collude with the darkness around you, because if you try to negotiate with the gutter, you're just going to remain permanently trapped in it. So, that leaves us with one final question. When you inevitably find yourself in the darkest depths of life, are you going to let the gutter be your end, or will you use it as the foundation for your ultimate reset? Shuifeng's essay challenges all of us to apply this philosophy to our own absolute hardest moments. So the next time you find yourself completely surrounded by darkness, remember to look up. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep your eyes on the stars.